We all try to keep up, right? Trying to get a handle on what's really going on in the world, cut through all the noise.
That's a lot.
It is. And that's what we try to do here. Take these big, complex stories and sort of unpack them so you come away feeling like, okay, I get it now, not just overwhelmed.
And today, we're diving deep into something pretty significant that just happened. Operation Sindoor went down yesterday.
Right, May 7th, 2025. But, to really get it, we need to rewind a bit.
Yeah, the backstory is crucial here. It really starts on April 22nd.
Exactly. Think about Pahalgam. Beautiful place in Jammu and Kashmir, usually peaceful, lots of tourists. Well, on April 22nd, it was hit by this just brutal terror attack. 26 people killed.
26 lives.
Yeah.
It's awful. 25 Indians and one Nepali citizen, I believe.
Yeah. And the fingers, they're pretty quickly pointed towards Lashkar-e-Taiba, Let-T, and Jaish-e-Mohammed, JEM, both, based in Pakistan.
And that Pahalgam attack, I mean, the sheer brutality, targeting civilians in a tourist spot like that, it just sent this shockwave, huge public outrage in India.
Absolutely. And the evidence strongly suggested, cross-border involvement. There was this growing frustration, wasn't there, about Pakistan maybe not doing enough about these groups operating on their soil.
A definite sense of that, yeah. Perceived inaction, let's say.
So, okay, that's the backdrop. Public anger, clear links across the border, and then comes Operation Sindoor.
And this wasn't some, knee-jerk reaction.
No, definitely not. From everything we're gathering, this was planned meticulously, took about 12 days in total.
Which is interesting in itself. The timeline suggests, maybe 8 or 9 days for the initial strategy part?
And then another 3 or 4 days of intense fine-tuning. We're talking Army, Navy, Air Force top brass involved.
That joint planning across all three services, it points to a very deliberate, coordinated effort. Probably trying to keep Pakistani intelligence guessing, too.
Makes sense. And the targets, they weren't random. Very specific.
9 locations, apparently.
Yeah.
Identified terrorist camps, key infrastructure.
Linked directly to JEM, Let-T, and Hizbul Mujahideen as well.
Right. We're hearing specific places mentioned, like JEM's headquarters in Bahalpur.
Okay.
What's based in Murdke, that's near Lahore. And also camps in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, Pope.
Places like Kotli and Muzaffarabad, Shawai Nala region.
Exactly, those specific areas. So, targeted.
And there seems to have been this, dual objective.
Yeah, definitely. Objective 1, hit the terrorists hard, disrupt them, take out key people, makes sense.
But objective 2, and this seems just as important,
Was the precision. Avoid civilian casualties. Avoid hitting Pakistani military assets.
crucial. Stop things spiraling, right? Neutralize the immediate threat without kicking off a wider war.
A very delicate balancing act if they pulled it off.
And the execution itself. Wow. Sounds incredibly fast.
The timing was precise. 1:04 a.m. on May 7th. And the whole thing over in just 25 minutes.
25 minutes? That's remarkable. How did they achieve that?
Well, it sounds like they used some pretty advanced tech. Special precision munitions.
Like missiles, drones.
Exactly. Guided by GPS, apparently. Very accurate, allowing them to hit just the intended buildings, the infrastructure.
And again, that coordination we mentioned, Army, Navy, Air Force, all working together seamlessly in that tight window.
It really speaks to their joint operational capabilities.
So what was the reported outcome, the impact?
The numbers being put out suggest around 100 terrorists killed and significant damage to the camps, the infrastructure.
And they released satellite images.
They did, yeah, to apparently back up those claims, show the damage at the target sites.
That visual confirmation is pretty powerful.
It is, and maybe just as important, the reports stress. No civilian casualties, no damage to Pakistani military facilities.
Which, if accurate, underlines that precision element they were aiming for.
Definitely.
India's official reaction has been quite forthright. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh used the phrase unimaginable precision.
Strong words. He also mentioned accuracy, vigilance, and humanity.
Humanity. That's an interesting word choice in this context.
It is, isn't it? It probably reinforces that message. We only targeted terrorists. We actively tried to avoid harming anyone else.
And the name itself, Operation Sindoor.
Yeah, apparently chosen by Prime Minister Modi. Sindoor, the vermilion powder.
That married Hindu women wear, deeply symbolic.
Extremely. The connection being drawn is, quite directly, to the women widowed in that Pahalgam attack.
So it frames the operation not just as military action, but as avenging that loss, protecting that symbol.
It carries a lot of emotional weight, that naming. A very specific message.
Okay, so how did Pakistan react? Predictably, I imagine.
Pretty much as you'd expect. Strong condemnation. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called it an act of war.
An act of war, wow. Did they mention retaliation?
Hinted at it, yeah. Threatened it. Their military spokesperson did confirm impacts.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, confirmed 24 impact points and acknowledged 8 casualties, though they didn't specify who those casualties were.
Right, so unclear if they were confirming the targeted terrorists or claiming something else.
Exactly. And then after that, Pakistan did respond militarily, but differently.
How so?
Artillery shelling along the line of control of the Lahi and the international border.
And that had consequences.
Tragically, yes.
Yeah.
Reports say 3 Indian civilians were killed in Jammu and Kashmir because of that shelling.
Awful. So even if the initial strikes avoided civilian casualties, the response led to them.
It highlights the danger, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How quickly things can escalate and the terrible cost for people living near the border.
So Pakistan calls it an act of war, shells the border. How did India respond to that?
India seems to be holding a firm line. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval apparently made it clear internationally India doesn't want to escalate,
Okay.
but is fully prepared to hit back hard if Pakistan keeps up any aggression.
So deterrence. And was that message echoed elsewhere?
Yeah, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri called the initial strikes proportionate, said they were purely about bringing the Pahalgam attackers to justice. And you had S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, reinforcing the call for zero tolerance for terrorism globally.
So projecting resolve, basically. Sending a clear message.
A very clear message,
Yeah.
both to Pakistan and the world.
Now, one thing that really stood out was the domestic reaction within India.
The political unity, you mean? Yeah, that was notable.
There was an all-party meeting, May 8th. And reports say leaders from basically across the board backed the operation. Congress, Trinamool, DMK, even AIMIM.
That's significant. Getting buy-in from opposition parties like Congress, with leaders like Karji and Rahul Gandhi voicing support, and even the RSS calling it the beginning of justice.
Yeah.
It shows how seriously this issue of cross-border terrorism is taken domestically, a unified front.
It really puts Operation Sindoor into perspective. We need to see it in that long, complex history of India-Pakistan relations, don't we?
Absolutely. Since 1947, the partition, the Kashmir issue always there, Pakistan's alleged history of backing militant groups.
It's a long and troubled history.
And Operation Sindoor follows previous actions, right? The 2016 surgical strikes after Uri.
And the Balakot airstrike in 2019 after Pulwama.
Exactly. But this one, Operation Sindoor, it seems different somehow. Reports suggest it went deeper into Pakistani territory.
And used more advanced tech, those precision missiles, the drones we mentioned.
That seems to be the case, which might signal, a shift, a more assertive phase maybe in India's counter-terror strategy.
How has the rest of the world reacted? Any surprises?
Well, the U.S. and the U.K., their statements were pretty standard, diplomatic, calling for de-escalation, urging dialogue.
Okay, predictable.
Israel, on the other hand, was more direct, voiced support for India's right to self-defense.
Interesting. And what about Pakistan's allies? China.
China's public reaction seemed quite muted, reserved.
And the UN.
The UN did what the UN usually does.
Yeah.
Called for restraint from both sides.
Right. Which doesn't always solve the underlying problem.
No. The varied reactions, though,
Yeah.
maybe they reflect a kind of complex global understanding of the region's dynamics, the history there.
Let's bring it back to the human level for a moment. The impact on people.
Crucial. For the families of the Pahalgam victims, reports suggest this operation brought maybe a sense of justice, or at least accountability.
You can understand that feeling after such a devastating loss.
Definitely. But then there's the other side, that Pakistani shelling we talked about.
The 3 civilians killed in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes. And beyond that, people living along the border displaced, living in fear because of the shelling and the tension.
It's always the civilians near the border who pay the immediate price for these escalations.
It is. The Lieutenant Governor of J&K, Manoj Sinha, did assure residents of safety measures and support, which is vital for them.
So looking forward now, where does this leave things? The stakes feel higher.
They definitely feel higher. India sent a very strong signal about its tolerance level for cross-border terror. Zero tolerance, basically.
And demonstrated it has the capability and the will to strike deep inside Pakistan if needed.
Precisely. So the big question now is, what does Pakistan do long-term? Will anything change on their end regarding these groups? Or will it be denial and deflection as usual?
And India seems prepared for anything.
Looks like it. We're seeing reports of heightened security alerts, airports in the north, on higher vigilance, even civil defense drills happening.
Preparing the public, too, then.
Yeah, drills in schools and things.
Yeah.
It suggests they're taking the potential for further volatility very seriously. A state of high alert.
So when we wrap this all up, Operation Sindoor, it wasn't just another military strike, was it?
No, far more than that. It felt like a statement. Deliberate, precise, packed with symbolism. Yeah. A clear marker in India's fight against terrorism.
So for you listening, the key things to take away are probably that incredible claimed precision, the clear effort made to not escalate into a wider conflict.
And that really striking political unity inside India supporting the action.
It really does feel like a potentially new chapter in this very difficult relationship. And it leaves us thinking, doesn't it?
It does. What are the long-term consequences of strikes like this?
Yeah.
How does this change the game strategically in the region?
And, what happens next between India and Pakistan? What about the fight against terrorism itself? Lots of questions still hanging in the air. It's a situation we'll definitely need to keep watching.